Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. Thank you very much for agreeing to meet with us and discuss a few things legal.
So
All
why
right.
don't you start by just introducing yourself?
My name is Aaron Friedman. I'm a lawyer at Battle River Law. I've been a lawyer since I guess 2005. My areas of practice are primarily business related, and I do quite a bit of real estate transactions, primarily residential real estate transactions. So we have lots of business in common, and
Mhm.
yeah, so this is primarily what I do. So I talk to you and your types all the time.
Excellent.
You love
Excellent.
it. You love it, I'm sure.
So what can you tell us about what a lawyer does with closing a transaction? Like somebody purchases a house, their offer is accepted, and then everything comes to you. Now, what does that look like when it comes to you?
I guess it depends on whether our client is the purchaser or the seller, but we would get the real estate contract from the conveyancing people with your office,
Mhm.
and then we would kind of go through the deal and determine if there's any uniqueness in the deal. And then our first aim, I guess, is to prepare a statement of adjustments, which determines how the money's going to flow, all the incomings and outgoings. So on a purchase, you're looking at the purchase price. You're looking at getting things such as title insurance, which we'll talk about, and making tax adjustments, which we'll talk about, calculating legal and land titles costs, and then we figure out how you're paying for that. There's usually a deposit that was left with the realtors, yourselves, at the time when the deal was struck.
Mhm.
And then most people would get a mortgage, borrow money from a financial institution like a bank or a credit union. That would be secured on the land title by a mortgage, and there would be an amount that the lender was sending us. So you add that to the deposit, and then you figure out what's left for the client to pay in order to close their transaction. So in doing that, we communicate with municipalities, with real estate agents, with lending institutions. We normally have documents coming in a similar time, often very tight to the deadline from the lending institution. Uh, you know, setting out how much the borrowing is, and then we would meet with the client and review kind of how the money works, how the transaction works, what their possession day is going to look like from our perspective. Um, Talk to them about making sure that they have home insurance. Again, talk to them about ensuring that they've got their utilities set up, and they do their walkthrough with you guys, which I'm certain you guys have already reviewed with them.
Mhm.
And we collect the cash to close, meaning the money that's above and beyond your deposit and your mortgage money. We send that to the seller's lawyer, which is sometimes myself and sometimes a different lawyer, on what we call trust conditions. So we don't have to kind of meet on the street corner with a briefcase of money and paperwork to exchange. We as lawyers, we have kind of special understanding with one another, which is governed by the Law Society. That if we say that the money's coming, or that the transfer documents are coming and they'll be used in a certain way, then that's the how they have to get used, or else we get in trouble, and the client gets made right through our insurance. So we're very careful to comply with those conditions and stuff like that. With a sale deal, much the same. We get the real estate documents. We review them, figure out if there's any uniqueness. If there's money owing, then we gotta clear the title and pay the taxes, and sort everything out. And then normally pay the realtors, and normally the client would get the change, and hopefully it's lots.
Mhm. So there's
Absolutely.
lots of moving parts that a lot of people wouldn't understand that happens that you guys take care of. You had touched a little bit on title insurance. Can you tell us the importance of having title insurance?
And maybe even what title insurance is.
Sure. Title insurance is I guess a policy of insurance that would protect the physical title and the paper title, and I'll go into that a little bit. That's how I say it, so I don't know if that's how title insurance says it, but if you have a mortgage, title insurance is generally required these days. So it's, I end up looking like their salesman, but the lender, the lender basically says you have to have it in order to protect us and protect our investment in your property. So when I say physical title, I mean the actual land. What's being looked at is where the buildings are sitting on the land. Um, it used to be that you would go and get a survey done and make sure that your buildings were, first of all, sitting on your actual land as opposed to the neighbors. And second of all, make sure that they're in compliance with zoning regulations like setbacks from the street, from the alley, from your neighbors, stuff like that. So that's kind of the protection on the physical title. So what title insurance does, rather than does a survey and confirms those points, is it says they take a gamble. They say if everybody pays us and somebody has it wrong, we'll fix it. So and I used to think they just collected money and never did anything, but I've seen over the years that they make it right. If your house is sitting 2 feet onto the neighbor's property and you have title insurance and you weren't aware, title insurance will take the path of least resistance to kind of make it right, whether it's an easement or up to physically moving the house over if they need to, or rebuilding it. And those situations have happened, and people would be surprised, but it's quite common that a house or the buildings on a property can be out of compliance. So when the bank says I'm going to lend you 100,000 or 300,000 on a property, and then they find out the house is sitting on the neighboring property, they're obviously quite concerned. So title insurance has kind of come in to alleviate those concerns and allow lenders to be more able to borrow or lend. So so that's kind of the physical title, the way I describe it. There's also the paper title that title insurance protects, and there's a few things that it does. Our title system is very quick in comparison to Alberta and other jurisdictions. Our title insurance takes normally kind of 2 to 5 days from the time that you register the transfer documents, transferring title from the seller to the buyer. But sometimes things can happen in that interim period. Maybe somebody says, well, I heard so-and-so is selling their property and they owe me money for fixing their garage door. So I'm going to register a lien on that property. And then it might take 5 days. And in the 2 days before you register the transfer to the new owner, and the title might spit out on the other side and say, the new owner has it subject to a lien that was the problem of the old owner. Now it becomes the problem of the new owner. So title insurance gives what they call gap coverage. So they cover the gap from the time that you send documents in to register to the time that they're registered. So if there's any intervening problems and you've purchased title insurance, they'll fix it. They'll get it off of your title and they'll take it up with whose problem it should be. And it does it. So that allows us to flow money quicker. There's a number of other protections that they've kind of added into their package to kind of make it more valuable, I guess. Normally, title insurance costs about I don't know, Up to about 225,000, you can expect to have a cost of about $200, and that's lender and owner policies, which basically cover both the lender and the owner for those concerns that I've raised on the physical title and the paper title. Up to about 500,000, the cost would be about $250, and it kind of goes up from there. So you know, in a normal house, you would expect that the title insurance cost to be in the $250 range. And I recommend it to all my clients. Most of my clients most people are borrowing money to buy homes, and the lender requires it. So, you know, that doesn't necessarily require my sales pitch, for which I get nothing for. It's a requirement. So, but hopefully, I don't know if you have any questions about that, but that's my understanding of how it works.
That's a really great explanation. And I think $250 to protect
Yeah.
like one of the biggest investments of your life.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer
A
in my
no-brainer, yeah.
and the thing is it only covers it covers the title basically forever, as long as you don't make another transaction with the title. So the time when that would matter to a home buyer is maybe they're paying for their home out of, you know, personal resources, and then they want to put a mortgage on it a month later when they can get that all figured out. That's not common, but in that situation, you'd want to, you know, you either might have to buy two policies, like one after the other, or wait till the mortgage and to get that policy. But when you put that policy in place and it's your property, for all intents and purposes, that carries with you for the life of your ownership of the property.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good to know. And cheap.
And super
Yeah,
cheap.
it really is. I mean, none of this feels cheap though on game day when
No, it doesn't. Been
when
there.
you're
We've all been there, right?
yeah, you're being asked to kind of access your life savings to pay your down payment and to pay your lawyer and to pay land titles and to pay, you know, to pay title insurance and to pay a tax adjustment, which again, I think we're going to talk about.
I think we should talk about that one now.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I get it when somebody sees, you know, another $250 or whatever on their bill, they're thinking, well, geez, this just keeps on nickeling me to death. But that is that is title insurance. So tax adjustments. So they're kind of the most confusing part of my meeting with clients when we kind of go through the money and figure everything out. And I think it comes from a couple different things. Like, first of all, taxes are payable from January to December. So that doesn't sound like rocket science, but the problem is that taxes aren't levied or issued or billed, I guess, by the municipality until usually around July in the year in the cities and even later in the rural communities. So for half the year you have no idea what your taxes are going to be. I mean, you can have a pretty good understanding from the previous year, but you know that's a little bit uncertain. And then they're flowing from that, people don't pay their taxes until they're levied or billed, right? So if you buy your property in the first part of the year, the taxes haven't usually been paid, right? So what happens is you figure out based on last year's, at least in North Battleford, our kind of legal community has all agreed that we just have to rely on last year's taxes and do our adjustment for the year that you're in on the basis of last year. So if you buy a house say you bought a property on April 1st and the taxes are almost always unpaid. In this case, the seller will often be given a credit by the buyer for taxes payable for January, February, and April. When the tax bill comes out in July, the buyer is then responsible for the whole year's taxes. So when I said you get that statement of adjustments and you get just kind of one bill, I say, okay, I need $4,350. You get your house and everything's taken care of. In the case that I've raised, the taxes will not have been paid. So all of a sudden in July, you get a bill for say $4,000 for the taxes for the whole year. And you're thinking, well, geez, I've been here for, you know, April, May, and June, and I just got a $4,000 bill. That's normally when I'm getting a call. And I say to the client, well, actually, you got a credit for the first 3 months from the seller, which reduced the amount that you had to pay. And now you're being asked to pay for the 3 months that you've had the property, plus the following 6 months. So I'm probably confusing you guys right now. I apologize for that, but it just
No, we're good.
We're
just
good.
the time of year makes a huge difference. And so what we've been doing, you know, as our office is and in my kind of reading of mortgage instructions, I think rightly, when we collect a tax adjustment from a seller, then and we say, okay, based on taxes being, you know, $4,000 for the year, you know, your share is $1,000. We take that money and we pay it directly to the municipality. And then when you get your bill, it shows the tax paid
Oh, that's
from the seller. So I think it's the best way to do it. Sometimes folks, like I said, when you're digging into your life savings, are scrambling for cash right at the, you know, moment of truth on possession day, and they would really prefer just having that $1,000 credit.
Yeah.
You know, but then they get the tax bill and it's $1,000 more. So when you buy property at the end of the year, or sorry, after July, shall we say you bought a property on October 1st. Well, oftentimes the taxes have already been levied or billed to the current owner, seller, and then the seller needs to get reimbursed for the time that they've paid for the taxes, but they haven't you know, used the property. So they have to get reimbursed. So if you bought it October 1st, you're going to be asked to pay back the seller as an adjustment for October, November, December.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe it's $1,000 in my example, right? So over and above what you're being asked for your, you know, purchase price, your down payment, your title insurance, your legal fees, your whatever land titles fees, you're going to be asked for another $1,000 to pay for the property. So I don't want it to be doom and gloom. I'm saying that's oftentimes a surprising circumstance for a new home buyer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think this
Anyway,
is a good time to point out again that like the importance of having a lawyer, because if you didn't, you'd have no idea, you know, and find a lawyer you trust, that you can meet with, that is able to do all these things, and you know it's taken care of, because it can be pretty overwhelming for the average, just the average person getting into it, but
yeah,
it's taken care of.
yeah, there's lots of moving parts, and you know, one of the we have I guess specialized training. We have a lot of insurance, which I think is why the banks insist that people use lawyer when there's a loan involved, because if something goes wrong, it's my problem. So I have to make it right. You know, if it goes wrong with your title, if it goes wrong with your taxes, if it goes wrong with your mortgage, or somehow a registration stayed on your title, that's my issue to fix. And I have lots of insurance to do that. I'm very, very thankful that I haven't had to access that yet in my career. I have very good people that help me do this, and we have a really good system with our office. And I can say all the lawyers in North Battleford are exceptional in this work.
Awesome. So I guess my final question would be, what kind of fees can people expect as a legal fee for everything that you guys do? Because you're doing a lot for people, right? Is
Yeah.
it standard, or is it based on a closing cost, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the legal fees are pretty much, I mean, you can fluctuate a little bit, but there's basically a tariff or a chart of cost that's set by the Law Society, and they basically say, you know, if your transaction is this, then this is what you can expect to pay. So there's three types of transactions, really. I mean, there's more, but there's a sale deal if you sell your property, there's a purchase deal, and there's a mortgage deal. And those are each treated as a individual transaction. So if you're a buyer, you generally, with a mortgage, you have to pay two sets of legal fees, one for the purchase, one for the mortgage. And the fees are equivalent based on value, right? So if the transaction was $100,000, the fee is $500
Okay.
for a purchase. And if the mortgage was the same $100,000, the fee is another $500, right? On a $200,000 transaction, it's $600. On a $300,000 transaction, it's $662.50. Right? So everything out over 200,000 has like a 1/16 of 1% transaction fee. So we have a calculator. I mean, it just sets it out, and I normally try to round them down to make sure that I'm being fair, but you can expect pretty much across the board that lawyers are going to charge based on the tariff. You know, I joke and say kind of like gas prices or you know, honor amongst thieves. So
Yeah.
guess I
Awesome.
shouldn't say that on a recorded video. Now, in addition to the legal fees, everybody, so land title fees are fixed. It doesn't matter what lawyer you go to. The land titles fees are, and they just went up August 1st to 0.4% of the value of the title to transfer a title into your name. It used to be 0.3%. So on a $100,000 transaction, the purchaser will have to pay an additional $400 to land titles to transfer the title to their name. 200,000, 800, 300,000, 1,200. So it's gotten quite a bit more expensive. And that fee is non-negotiable. And then when you register a mortgage, once again, they've upped their fees again. Anything up to 250,000 is $180, 250 to 500,000, $250, 500,000 to 750,000, $750, and then, you know, above that it's $1,000 or something. So I don't know if I do have a couple of draft statements of adjustments. I'm not sure how to put them on here, but
you can send them to us too, and we can
yeah, we can post them with the video.
yeah, so they're kind of on higher priced items. I just wouldn't mind people kind of seeing what they might expect to see. So I think the transactions I'm doing are over 300,000 that I kind of did up the adjustment statements for. So they might not be, you know, representative of what all buyers are paying, but you know, relying on kind of some of the stuff I said that it adjusts based on the values and stuff like that. People should be able to at least see how it might look.
Yeah,
but
I think that's great to have an illustration.
Yeah.
So I can send a couple of those, and I don't know, like I said, technologically I'm not sure how to fit those in, particularly when we're on the spot right now, but
that's okay. No, that's really good. I think it's important too to point out all the you know, when people get a bill from you where we say these are going to be your legal fees, they just think you're taking that and putting it in your pocket. But there's so many things that you have to pay as well.
Yeah,
it's taken care of. So can't stress this enough.
No, I know it's I do have to look people in the eye, so I try to be very forthright in terms of exactly what I'm charging, exactly what's going out of pocket, exactly what's kind of for taxes or for, you know, real estate fees or for, you know, clearing the title or whatever else. So I mean, it's I have no issue with people kind of calling me in advance and asking for a quote in advance, and Karen and I have done that plenty of times. and I stand by those regardless of how unique a transaction is. You know, they're all different, right? It's different purchasers, different buyers, different lenders. you know, different circumstances, right? Different times a year, which has different considerations with taxes. One of the other things when we're talking about taxes, I've kind of taken this off, but um, our office has come up with the policy that we're paying people's utility accounts out, the sellers. We just pay it. They do a reading on kind of the final day, like the water utility. And the reason for that is because the municipalities have seemingly just decided they're not even going to send a final bill. They'll just put it on the new person's taxes. And occasionally that's been happening. And we as a legal community have been sorting that out, but it can be, you know, after the fact, and just call me if something like that happens and I will sort it out.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
really good to know, because that has come
Yeah.
up in a couple of situations where it's like,
Yeah, and
I've
it's
been in here, they're billed every 3 months, and I was in here for 4 days, and all of a sudden I got this bill for the
yeah.
past 3 months, and they watered their garden all day. So, you know, something like that
Yeah,
where
and it's beyond stressful, right? Again,
Yeah.
you know, you just walked out of your lawyer's office and they told you, okay, you've paid everything and you're ready to go, and then all of a sudden something shows up 2 months later and you're like, what the heck is going on? So, you know, that can happen, but myself and I think everybody like me will do everything they can to make it right.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much all of our questions for you, and you did a wonderful job kind of summing that up for everybody. I hope everybody learns a little bit like we did here. So I just want to thank you again for agreeing to meet with us and share some of your knowledge as an expert in the field.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care, you guys.
You too.